What up, my fans, and welcome back to the MMA channel with me, Marisol. I know I've been gone for quite some time, but I do really want to talk about this subject here on this platform, even though I have touched on it on Instagram. This is something that I am extremely passionate about and quite frankly needs to be discussed, and I think that discussing it with you would be amazing. And quite frankly, I need to talk about it. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I am referring to the comments that Stephen A. Smith has made. He was on a podcast and he talked about and said these comments essentially saying that women should not be in the octagon. That's not something that he wants to see, which is absolutely sexist and ridiculous. And he then goes on and quite frankly, it seems like it was more of a way to cover his ass for saying something so sexist and ridiculous. He then goes on and says that essentially he just doesn't want to see women fighting men. I just don't want to see women fighting men. I'll put the quotes up here or on this side, wherever they fit best. Which, quite frankly, like I just said, it seems like he just said that to cover his ass after you realize you said something so ridiculous that you're going to get heat for. Because when we look at the sport and at MMA, how many times do you ever actually see women fighting men? Practically never. It's extremely rare. Jermaine Durandamy did it. Who else can you name that has done it and at a large scale and a huge platform with a lot of eyes on them? No, never. Never. That's never happened in the UFC, which is what we're covering here, which is what we're mainly talking about. Never. It's never happened at a large scale with millions of eyes on it, like we see with UFC fights, Bellator fights, what have you. So that is a ridiculous thing to say that, again, I think was said just to cover his ass. So I think that portion of his statement, we don't even need to discuss it. That's not the point here. Because the real thing is like he said after the fact later on, which is again also quoted in the article by MMA Fighting, is that he doesn't want to see women in pugilistic sports. Essentially, again, I'll put the definition up here. Essentially, women fighting, using their hands, boxing, say kickboxing, karate, things like that. He doesn't want to see that. So what? We can grapple, we can wrestle, we can do jujitsu, judo. Is that fine? Under this weird logic? But MMA, boxing, that's not okay? How does that even make sense? And even then, it's still ridiculous. Because women can do any of this. And quite frankly, women have played a major role in making MMA and even the UFC itself what it is today. Like Gina Carano, which I think I even have a whole video on her. I'll see if I can find that and link it down below. What she's done for the sport, she was the face of women's MMA. She made the sport what it is, essentially, because she brought it to the mainstream. She was one of the first people to bring it to the mainstream and introduce so many other people to this sport. And then we have Ronda Rousey. She is the reason why women are even in the UFC. She is the reason why the sport grew even more. Obviously before Conor McGregor, but she brought millions of people to this sport. So women have grown this sport. And also, not only from my own personal experience, but from observing this sport, being a fan of this sport, I think it is astounding from what I've seen and what I've experienced that women are actually readily accepted and encouraged and respected in this sport, in MMA, in martial arts in general. I remember going to jujitsu and like being the only girl in the class and then it being like 2 or 3 of us. And then now I'm so happy that I go to a gym where we have like a full-fledged women's team. Like, it's amazing. And even on top of that, when it comes to my experience talking about this sport, watching this sport, women are respected. Women fighters, they're respected as fighters, as athletes in this sport so readily. Whereas that's not something I've really ever seen in any other sport. And I don't know what it is or why that is. But it's something that I've actually been thinking about for quite a long time and I have wanted to talk about it here, but haven't quite found the words how to really explain what I've observed. But quite frankly, given how young this sport is, we've quickly have gone from a lot of people saying, I don't want to see women fighting, to average, everyday, casual fans, the diehard fans, commentators, everyone just wanting to see the women fighters. Like, this is the only sport where I've seen people being just as pumped to see some women fighters in there versus the top dudes of the sport. Or even more so, again, with these videos here on this channel alone, I can tell you from my analytics that when I talk about female fighters in these videos, they get so many more views than when I talk about male fighters in these videos. I don't know why that is, but that is definitely a trend that I have seen over the last couple of years that I've been doing this. So when we have someone out here who is a commentator, and from what I can tell, at least is in a position of respect, a respected position. Whether or not he personally is respected, I don't really know. Definitely not by the MMA fans. But when we have someone in that position saying something like this, it is extremely unfortunate. And at this point in this sport, in MMA, where I have seen women be respected, be praised, people pumped to see women fighting. I mean, if we just look at the last year alone, which I still say that Ioane Jędrzejczyk versus Zhang Weili was fight of the year for 2020. We just started off strong with that fight in March 2020. And if you're going to tell me you can watch that fight and then say women shouldn't be in the octagon, no, just no. It's absolutely ridiculous. And quite frankly, with Smith, you said some BS about Don Cerrone and MMA fans came for you. You're saying more BS now and we're coming for you again. Just get the hell out of our sport. Stop. This is not what you're supposed to be covering. And quite frankly, from my own personal experience, from my observations in a sport where women are so highly respected for the athletes that they are, for the fighters that they are, no, we don't need somebody coming in here and saying things like this. We've come too far. We don't need somebody coming in here and taking us backwards. So those are my thoughts. I'm doing this on the fly. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And I will definitely be back with more content for you guys. So I'll see you in the next one.